Here we go! Yeah!
Sonic Unleashed is one of my favorite games of all time, and rightfully so. It features some of the best levels in Sonic's 35-year history, and might just be my favorite 3D Sonic game, which is why I claim that Sonic Unleashed understands 2D Sonic. The 3D Boost levels switch between 2D and 3D gameplay portions frequently, but the 2D portions in Unleashed remain some of the best Sonic gameplay in the franchise. In fact, it's so good that I would place it next to some of the actual 2D games. To explain, I first want to go over what makes a Sonic level, how the boost formula changes things, how Generations implements 2D, and finally, what makes Unleashed 2D work so well. So what exactly goes into a Sonic level in the first place? Well, a Sonic level is usually laid out with a top, middle, and bottom path. By playing good and expressing your skill, you can reach the top path, which is usually faster and flashier. When you play worse, you get sent to the progressively lower paths, with the lowest path usually featuring tight platforming more akin to a Mario level. One of the things that makes Sonic stand out from the crowd is how uniquely unpunishing its gameplay is. The ring system, combined with very few intentional one-hit deaths and a generous 10-minute timer, makes it unlikely the player will experience the death if they take things slow. Compare that to any other platformer, where death is pretty much the default state of failure. Sonic just takes you to a different route. This leads to a form of gameplay encouraging replayability. Every time you play the level, you get better, are able to hit tricks more often, and are able to take higher routes and experience new parts of the level, as well as getting better and better times. But with that is another form of gameplay. With the gracious 10-minute timer, you can treat the level like a physics sandbox. Sonic's pinball-inspired gameplay and the later addition of the spin dash make it fun to just mess around and explore. It's a totally valid way of playing through levels, and is especially fun as Tails. Both types of gameplay blend into each other. By taking it slow, you can appreciate scenery, explore new secrets, and practice tricks, which lets you go faster later. What really makes Sonic levels just work so well, however, is flow. Flow is the feeling of nailing a tight jump, just barely avoiding stopping on a wall. Flow is the feeling of jumping at the end and grabbing all the point bonuses. The real punishment for failure in Sonic games is ending your flow. Sonic games are fun because you get to try over and over and over again until you have the perfect run, finding new unintended tricks to preserve your speed. Frontier's homing dash is actually a really good example of this. Even if you slow down a bit, Sonic is just so much more fun when flow is preserved, even if a theoretical stop and go run through a level would get the same time. This is something classic Sonic understands and uses to thwart the player. Speed traps everywhere. To navigate a level perfectly is an incredible challenge, but it feels incredibly smooth and looks amazing to watch. As the Sonic series developed and a new gameplay style was created, the boost formula made a few important changes to the general Sonic level format. Most obviously, Sonic goes faster. Much faster. The boost button acts as an instant rocket button, and the challenge moves from gaining speed to maintaining that speed. Can you keep up as Sonic goes faster than ever before? When you make a mistake, how well can you recover? With Sonic moving so fast, there's less exploration available, but stages still have multiple routes, hidden paths, and other secrets. Finally, the gameplay switches between 3D and 2D sections. The switch from 3D to 2D has two purposes. Firstly, it serves as a bit of a pace breaker and an opportunity to just do something different. Moving vertically is easier in 2D, so it allows Sonic to use space in a different way. More importantly though, very importantly, it saves money. The boost levels in Unleashed are something like 5 kilometers long, and creating a world and content for that amount of space eats up huge development resources. By periodically switching the gameplay to a 2D perspective, they're able to save a bit of time and money on each stage. hopefully without compromising the level design or aesthetic. So I want to quickly look at how Generations implements 2D sections before moving to Sonic Unleashed. Sonic Generations uses 2D as a chance to add some of that traditional platforming that's missing from the 3D portions. Sonic simply moves too fast and his controls are too clunky in 3D to accurately platform, which makes the 2D sections perfect for that. Sonic moves slower in the 2D sections and becomes easier to control by virtue of removing one axis from the equation. The focus turns from what's in front of you to what's above you, but I think the main problem is that it really stops the flow from the 3D sections. Furthermore, because Generations levels are shorter than those in Unleashed, a bad 2D section can really stick out like a sore thumb. Sonic Unleashed implements its 2D sections in a very different way. Sonic Unleashed instead uses the 2D sections as an opportunity to continue the concepts previously shown throughout the level. Unleashed's 2D sections don't have a heavy emphasis on traditional platforming like Generations does. Notice the camera angle. The camera matches Sonic's height and usually pans forwards, showing more of what's ahead, mimicking the viewpoint during the level's 3D portions. This is because what's in front of Sonic and not what's above Sonic is most important. You will continue making the same inputs as before, only with a greater emphasis on jumping and managing your vertical position. I think the best example of this is in Dragon Road Act 1. The view regularly switches between 2D and 3D, but it feels seamless because both more or less continue the same theme: move from bridge to bridge quickly. The first 2D section is 20 seconds long, beginning with the transition of Sonic running down a dragon. Next, you have the option of moving along the wall, as you were just doing in the section before, or taking the dragon, as you were just doing in the section before. You then go up a staircase to a spring to end the 2D section. Notice how it's fast-paced, constantly requiring fast split-second inputs. This isn't Mario platforming, it is a QuickTime event disguised as a platformer. And it just works. It works so well, in fact, that when I was watching the recording to make this paragraph, I watched completely through this section and into the spinny platforms part before I realized and remembered that this was the first 2D section and I needed to start taking notes. The next 2D section is filled with multiple pathways and obstacles. Sonic platforms across some walls, another dragon, and the section is filled with secrets that put you on a different path, interestingly intersecting a different axis. What I really like is that sections like these, even though they are 2D, don't feel forced. It's not like we're cutting away the stage here to have a 2D segment for gameplay and budgetary reasons. The 2D segments just naturally flow into the way the level is laid out and make sense from an environmental perspective. These are thin platforms. Moving from side to side wouldn't do Sonic much good here. They exist in a 3D space, some are at a 90-degree angle to others. The gameplay being cut down to two directions feels less like a forced constraint and more like a helping hand. You wouldn't want to be moving in 3D here anyways. And that's it for the 2D in Dragon's Road. This pattern can be found over and over again in Sonic Unleashed, with 2D sections being shorter, faster, and more focused on what's ahead than on what's above. I think this is amazing because it allows you to keep your flow from before, while in Generations it often gets stopped or heavily gimped. Unleashed is all about speed, and Sonic can blow through a level regardless of perspective. I think another great example is Savannah Citadel Act 1's ending. It's a spiral around a giant tree that is so incredibly fun to play through. It just fits so well thematically and feels like it was taken straight out of Sonic Rush. Even when you fail, you have the opportunity to recover and keep some of that flow, and that keeps the section fun no matter how good you are or what's going on. Sonic Unleashed perfectly understands what makes Sonic so fun, particularly with the changes made to the boost formula, and translates those into 2D in an excellent manner, one which doesn't feel like a transition for budgetary reasons, but one which flows naturally into the level and improves the game. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and keep watching. Thank you very much.